Members, may I invite members to join me in the opening prayer, please? Almighty God, the source of knowledge and understanding, guide the minds of those who are about to take counsel together on matters concerning this county, that in their debate and in their decisions, they may faithfully discharge the duties of their office and promote the health, safety and well-being of those who seek to serve. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Fellow councillors, officers and members of the public who are listening in via the Zoom webcast, welcome to our council meeting this evening. I'd particularly like to welcome our newest member, Councillor Rick Wilson, and I hope you have an interesting time with us, Rick. You'll enjoy it, don't worry. And also, could I thank Miranda Jones for her service on this council and wish her all the best for the future. Before we get to the agenda proper, I'd like to remind members to please ensure your microphone is switched on for the benefit of webcast and recording. Thank you. Now for the agenda proper. Item 1, apologies, please.
Chairman, we've received apologies from councillors Payne and Wilby. Therefore, councillors voting to 24 this evening.
Thank you. Item 2, chairman's announcements. Unfortunately, I didn't get to many this last time through ill health, but I did go to the last meeting of the council. I have attended the swearing in of the newly appointed justices at the castle. A very nice afternoon. Those of you who are familiar with the recent history of our fine county will know that Friday the 1st of April marks exactly 25 years since Rutland regained its independent status, having been a district of Leicestershire from 1974 until 1997. Rutland returned to independence only after a long-running campaign by impassioned councillors, residents and communities. Anyone who can remember that campaign will know just how hard local people had to fight for the change. That was a quarter of a century ago. As well as being a huge milestone, this anniversary is a chance to pause, reflect and celebrate all that we love and value about Rutland. We have a lot to be proud of and grateful for, particularly when we consider what else is happening around the world at this moment in time. This is not just food for thought. It should serve to galvanise us as custodians of the county and elected representatives. Through our work here with our partners and neighbours and out in the communities we serve, we have an opportunity to protect, preserve and enhance Rutland for the next 25 years and beyond. Item 3, announcements from leaders, members of the Cabinet, Head of Paid Service. Anybody?
I believe Councillor Stevenson has.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. You may remember a couple of months ago, we did a survey on our waste management. You may remember part of that. The data indicated that the average Rutland black bin contained 13% of rubbish that could have been recycled. One of the comments that I picked up on various platforms talking to people on the street was that some of our residents were unsure about what could be recycled. So this year, in the waste booklets that the majority of households receive, we have a sticker which you can, residents can peel off, either stick onto their grey bin or their recycling bin in the kitchen so that they know exactly what they can be recycled. I'd be really grateful if members could direct their residents, remind them. I'll certainly be doing some social media about it, but it'd be amazing if we could really cut down on that 13% that could have been recycled. Your help is appreciated. And thank you, Councillor Harvey, for loaning me your sticker, because mine has not yet turned up yet. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Just a second. I don't think it was mine, but no. Somebody's phone. Still here somewhere. Right, item 4, declarations of interest. None? No. Item 5, minutes of the previous meetings. To confirm the minutes of the meeting of Rutland County Council held on the 24th of January. I'll do them separately in case some members weren't at one or the other. Can I have a proposer and seconder, please? Councillor Hemsley and Councillor Stevenson. All those in favour? Any abstentions? 3 abstentions,
Yes.
4 abstentions.
That's carried, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And on the 28th of February, Councillor Hemsley, Councillor Stevenson, everybody in favour? Abstentions? 1, 2, 3.
Thank you. That's carried, Chair.
If just one very small point, if I may, and in fear of being corrected, the rededication I have down is Sunday the 10th. I may be wrong, but I have it down as Sunday the 10th and not the 11th. If so, I have to.
It's just a Sunday, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, if so, I have to alter the lieutenancy diary, but on the lieutenancy diary, I have it down for Sunday the 10th. But I stand to be corrected.
Through you, Chairman, we will clarify that through the minutes of this meeting. But I think you are right, Councillor Ball.
Thank you very much. Item 6, petitions, deputations and questions from members of the public. None received. Item 7, questions from members of the council. We have one question this evening and I would invite Councillor Cross to ask his question.
Most kind, Mr. Chairman. This is to our leader, Oliver. With reference to the outline planning application received for the proposed development at Quarry Farm and the agreement to give the 650 house allocation to South Kesteven District Council, SKDC. I would therefore like to ask, A, does the leader acknowledge he and certain others entered into an agreement to gift the 650 house allocation to SKDC without the full and open knowledge being shared with and agreed by all Rutland County councillors at the time of said agreement? B, could a full and open briefing be given on the current state of the reclaiming of the 650 allocation from SKDC, and also the advice provided to date by our legal advisor or advisors? C, what are Rutland's legal responsibilities should SKDC or any other partner not fulfill any part of their responsibilities under this proposed joint development? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Cross. Councillor Hemsley.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Cross, for the question. I seem to have a little bit of deja vu. There is no signed agreement and memorandum of understanding in place with South Kesteven District Council regarding any development within Rutland as part of a comprehensive sustainable urban extension to Stamford, counting towards South Kesteven's housing needs. The most recent decision made by the County Council with regard to the proposed 650 dwellings at Quarry Farm, counting towards South Kesteven's housing need, was taken by full council in February 2020 in approving the local plan for its statutory consultation and subsequent submission. All members were fully involved in the February 2020 council resolution, which was taken following a comprehensive scrutiny investigation. That decision was overtaken by the subsequent decision of full council in September 2021 to withdraw the local plan. All elected members were briefed on Quarry Farm site prior to both decisions being made at full council. The second question was regarding could a full and open briefing be given. There is currently no further update to the answer given to Councillor Cross in December of last year. The County Council is awaiting a response from South Kesteven District Council. Regarding Council, was asked to advise in August 2021 on the implications for the Quarry Farm development in the event that the council resolved to withdraw the local plan. Council confirmed that the withdrawal of the local plan will lead to a far from straightforward situation in respect to Quarry Farm. It will impact on the housing land supply in year 6 for South Kesteven and the long-term prospects of North Stamford being completed is currently planned for in SKDC's local plan, having been supported by the South Kesteven's local plan inspector. Any appeal against a refusal of an application to develop Quarry Farm in the absence of a review Rutland local plan, and that's the council's wording for it, would be determined in accordance with the existing development plans, save where any other material considerations indicate otherwise. The proposal would be in conflict with the existing development plan and could not rely upon the emerging review Rutland local plan if it has been withdrawn. However, they could rely on Rutland's previous support for the development under its duty to cooperate, its contribution to meet housing needs, whether in Rutland or South Kesteven, and its key role for the long-term development of the Stamford North development, was set out in the SKDC local plan and supported by the local plan inspector who relied upon Rutland's support for the proposals. The particular circumstances whereby a commitment by one council to another under statutory duty to cooperate is not adhered to is very unusual. It is not one that I have come across before, and we cannot be certain how a court or a planning appeal inspector would react to that position. So discussion with SKDC is essential to try and find a way forward in respect of Quarry Farm. Your last question was, what are the Rutland's legal responsibilities? As there is no formal agreement or memorandum of understanding or cooperation in place, the following withdrawal of the submitted local plan, then there is no proposed joint development and there are no specific legal responsibilities on any party. As explained above, it is difficult to predict how the issue will be treated by an inspector or a court in the event of an appeal or legal challenge in relation to Quarry Farm. The report to full council in September 2021 outlined the implications of the withdrawal of the local plan with respect to this site. These are set out in paragraph 2.18 of the report. Withdrawing the local plan will also mean that there will be no longer an emerging policy basis in Rutland for the Quarry Farm allocation of 650 homes. This site is identified in South Kesteven's adopted local plan as an integral part of the comprehensive Stamford North Sustainable Urban Extension, otherwise known as SUE, and contributes to the housing needs for the sub-regional strategic market. This is quite a long reply, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah,
sorry.
please don't interrupt.
May I spare members this drivel?
Could you just...
Because this is a total and utter waste of my time asking relevant questions and me being given, or councillors being given, all of this trouble.
Councillor Cross, please.
Sorry.
Do not interfere.
No, I mustn't do that.
Carry on.
Thank you, Chairman. The council has committed to provide 650 homes to meet this housing need under the statutory duty to cooperate. Although the housing numbers allocated at Quarry Farm only begin to contribute to South Kesteven's housing supply in year 6 of its housing trajectory, the scheme is considered necessary to enable the comprehensive development of the SUE and secure the associated infrastructure, Link Road and Primary School. The council will be able to reconsider the strategy for Quarry Farm as part of the process of making a new local plan, taking into account any legal considerations, the duty to cooperate and refreshed evidence base of the objectively set housing needs. The council will have to consider its position if an application for Quarry Farm site is made in the interim. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Cross, you have one supplementary. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
You know, I can apologise for what I've just said, but really, I am not the one who should be apologising after we have listened to what we have just listened to. These were most relevant questions on a more than important matter. Right. Does the leader recall at a meeting of Cabinet on Tuesday, the 31st of July, 2018, that Councillor Gordon Brown stated, "We will retain the numbers within Rutland as meeting our 5-year housing supply, as well as receiving council tax, new homes bonus and SIL." It does not form part of our plan for allocations. So would Councillor Hemsley confirm that any development at Quarry Farm will be included within Rutland County Council's 5-year housing supply?
Thank you. Councillor Hemsley.
Thank you, Councillor Cross, for the supplementary question. At some point, if Quarry Farm does come forward and there is planning permission granted, then the numbers would account to Rutland, subject to SKDC finding a solution for the fact that at the moment is allocating their local plan. I do believe that ongoing discussions with them are progressing towards that demand that we have mentioned since meeting. I'm sure that once we've got a solution, we will be pleased to share it with you. But at this moment in time, it is a complicated issue because it's already in their local plan.
Mr. Chairman, could I please thank the leader for that response?
Yes, you can do that. Thank you.
I can do that. Thank you.
Item 8, referral of committee decisions to the council. Item 9, calling of decisions. Item 10, report from the Cabinet. We have a report number 57/2022 from the Cabinet this evening, requesting council's approval for several recommendations. Councillor Hemsley, please could you introduce recommendations regarding the future Rutland vision?
Thank you very much, Chairman. Just over a year ago, full council decided to embark on the future Rutland conversation. We have the report and 2 appendices in front of us tonight. A concluding summary report showing the findings from the November 2021 consultation of the draft, and the second, the final future Rutland shared vision, including revisions. The stated aim at Council in January 2021 was engage with residents and businesses to develop a vision and aspiration for Rutland that will inform future Rutland County Council strategies and approaches. This is as agreed, the vision aspirations which came from the future Rutland conversation is based on the understanding of what matters most to local people. Work undertaken after the decision at full council was one of the largest sustained public engagement programmes ever undertaken in Rutland. It involved many people from RCC and engaged with and involved over 2,000 people of all ages and from all parts of the county. And they included multiple rounds of themed topics and relevant age groups, interestingly the young as much as the more mature, identified some of the same things to preserve, and on feedback agreed that overall this had captured their views. The final document that we have today is a culmination of a lot of joined up effort and is a good indicator to how over the next 30 years we can achieve these goals by working together. So in closing, Future Rutland conversation set out a year ago to engage with residents and businesses to develop a long-term shared vision and aspirations for Rutland. The project has also sought to develop a stronger ongoing relationship with our residents by engaging with them, posing and answering questions, to have an ongoing dialogue. And I hope that we can all agree that with the vast amount of feedback gathered over the last 12 months or so, that the Future Rutland conversation has delivered on both the engagement and a stronger ongoing relationship with our residents. Having taken part in both Future Rutland work and the budget consultation, I know many of you have, I think it is very important that we keep this engagement going. Before I wrap up, I'd just like to add thanks to all involved, as without the engagement of the residents and the planning, this would not have happened. And thank you for having belief in how important this is for the future of Rutland. And please, when reading this, remember this is a shared journey that will take decades to arrive at, but will ensure that we pass Rutland on with a clear guiding light and an ambition. Cabinet has endorsed the Future Rutland vision and recommend that Council endorses the Future Rutland vision as a shared vision for the county as shaped by the Rutland community. And we adopt the final Future Rutland vision as a key document which will underpin the corporate plan and future council strategies and approaches. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Stevenson. Members? Anybody got to say? No? Thank you. The recommendations are that Council endorses the Future Rutland vision as a shared vision for the county as shaped by the community. And 2, adopts the Future Rutland vision as a key document which underpins the corporate plan and future council strategies and approaches. All those in favour?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry. Apologies. That is 23 in favour and 1 against,
Yeah,
Chairman.
23 in favour, 1 against, or abstaining? Against, thank you. We now have recommendation report number 36/2022, the bus service improvement plan and enhanced partnership. Councillor Rozelle is going to present the report.
Mr. Chairman, in requesting that Council approve the draft Rutland Enhanced Partnership EP Plan and Enhanced Partnership EP, I have the following to offer by way of introduction. Firstly, that members kindly acknowledge the significant volume of work undertaken by officers in their recent submissions, constrained by a very short timeline to central government. Mr. Chairman, in March 2021, the Department of Transport launched a new national bus strategy, Bus Back Better. The ambition of the strategy is to build back bus use above and beyond pre-COVID levels. Paragraphs 2.2, 2.3 and 2.4 further describe the background to this activity, along with the BSIP EP and associated scheme. Policy and strategic documents produced by this council have been amended over the years, but recent public engagement tells us that Rutland residents still value public transport, and particularly the freedom to travel across county and beyond for health, leisure, sports, the arts, and of course work. Sadly, and not surprisingly, the use of public transport dropped significantly, and to date, pre-COVID numbers have not yet been regained. Live and enjoy a rural setting, but unless we can encourage a significant culture change across the community, the empty buses that we see travelling around the county will leave us in a position where we cannot afford to run these services. We do not yet know any levels of funding that might come from government, but this detailed paper articulates how we've engaged with partners and what we will need to do to ensure that a service exists into the future. The type of service and what is affordable will need to be determined, but we know that demand responsive transport works, and this is but one example of the options open to us. Residents are also rightly concerned about transport links to medical services out of county. Mr. Chairman, I'll be working closely with my cabinet colleagues to ensure that we include their concerns in our work, and where possible, link our activity and decisions around the gaps between private transport, the Thames Ambulance Service Limited, TASL, and accessing public transport schemes. I would, Mr. Chairman, be pleased to take questions from members and provide written answers if more appropriate.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Stevenson, so first. Members. Councillor Oxley.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a little bit more information about the demand responsive links, because I know that that actually doesn't come into Rutland that far. It only goes as far as Gleaston, I think, the one out of Stamford. So I'd be interested to know what sort of debate has taken place with the company that is providing that service to bring it into more into Rutland than we have at the moment, where it's just touching the edges. And the second question, with petrol at £1.70 a litre, what sort of impact will that have on the ability for people to get to work, and will that make demand for bus services much more in demand? Those are my two questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you through you, and Councillor Oxley, thank you for your two questions. Firstly, in response to demand responsive links, it's a really important question. The work that's been carried out and the work that I've read since that was completed is that residents like it. Residents like the flexibility of that. The real difficulty we have is we don't yet know how much money is coming towards the county. Once we know how much money is coming towards the county, or if indeed the news we get is poor and we have the finances that we have, then what we must do simply is look at what works best for the county and get best value for money. But at the moment, we know that some of our buses run around the county empty. Arguably, that isn't a good use of our resource. And it may be that demand responsive transport is an option we consider. And at that stage, we could talk to that company and others in an open market. In terms of the second question, I completely agree. Fuel costs are hitting everything. And it isn't just about BCF, it isn't just about the buses. Actually, it's about many of the services across the county. And in council recently, in cabinet recently, we've raised that issue. And I know that in the finance team, they're looking closely at what that's going to cost us. And I'm sure we'll come back to council in due course.
Thank you. Councillor Walters.
Thank you, Chairman. I certainly acknowledge the hard work and dedication of our officers in such a short timescale. I'm happy to agree with that. I'm also happy to support the paper in general. I have a couple of questions, though, in fact, three. Large page 96 refers to Voluntary Action Rutland as supplying community transport. It simply says it supplies it for those who are unable to use public transport or for journeys where public transport is not available or is difficult. And that is correct. However, it is not the whole story. Could we at some point have an update on what the criteria are for the eligibility to access that service, as I don't believe it's quite that simple? And could we have an update on how that service is getting along with its, and I'm trying to be polite here, not so young volunteer base? I know they were struggling before. And again, as Councillor Oxley stated, the cost of fuel, I'm not sure how sustainable it will be for people to simply volunteer their time and actually lose money on delivering that service. I don't expect an answer to that this evening. On large page 117, there is talk of possibly considering a trial of electric vehicles or other zero carbon vehicles for the hopper service. I wonder how that ties in with a decision which I thought we had made, but perhaps I'm wrong, to no longer have an RCC funded hopper service. I thought we were passing that to Oakham Town Council or ceasing it. So I would appreciate some steer on that this evening if possible. And thirdly, I do understand the limitations of this paper. I'm slightly concerned that because it was based on what I believe was a framework by government, members of the public may be expecting something a bit more dynamic. They might be expecting a paper saying we're going to have these 3 new routes at these new times, and they may be disappointed. So how are we going to manage our communications so people are not disappointed and may have unrealistic expectations of this paper? Other than that, happy to support it, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Rizal.
Mr. Chairman, thank you through you. Councillor Walters, thank you so much for those 3 questions. Firstly, with Voluntary Action Rutland, I did recently receive an email from Voluntary Action Rutland who asked us if they could be included in work going forward and how the county respond to the requirements of transport. I didn't respond to that email at that time, but I have passed that on to officers, and of course we would include Voluntary Action Rutland and others in our deliberations and any processes that we take place in the future. I can't, of course, comment on the age of the drivers. That would be inappropriate of me. In response to your second question around EV zero carbon vehicles, particularly the hopper service, I would agree that that conversation continues, Mr. Chairman, to go on with Oakham Town Council. My understanding is that an element of delay is around ill health. That's not for the public domain at this point. We will continue to have those discussions with them, and if need be, I will come back to council having made a hard decision or ask council to support a hard decision. In terms of the third question, I would agree again that government put us in a position where we had to provide a framework under which we could operate in the future, whether it around BSIP or EP, and officers put in the hours to provide that framework. But you're right, absolutely, this document doesn't describe yet what the solutions might be. And it isn't until we know whether we're going to get additional funding from the centre, government in this case, that we can make those decisions. I think what we must do with our public then is be very clear that we're not in a position yet to make the decisions. That's regrettable, but we're simply not. And I will ask the comms team to look at that and use the right words, simple language, to explain to people that until we know how much money we have, we can't describe how or when we're going to spend it. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Baines.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Chairman. Minor observations rather than questions. Entirely endorse what Councillor Walters has just said about managing expectations. And I'm well aware of the complexity and difficulty of running any sort of rural transport. And I think the report outlines the difficulties. I'm not surprised that it can't necessarily come up with solutions. There's too many variables. But what I would counsel is patience, Chairman. If I'm allowed to use this phrase, I'm entirely supportive of the direction of travel, but there is no quick fix. And I would make one point about Rutland in particular, I'm sure is true of a lot of other rural areas, that in the 1960s, as so often, things changed culturally. And for the first time, in the village that I was brought up in, there were probably only half a dozen cars in my childhood. By the 1960s, that had gone up probably tenfold. And the people of that generation who hard-earned independence, they will not willingly give up that independence that owning a car brings. They may not use it so often. And I think it will take several years for that cultural change to come through. So whereas I entirely welcome the questions that have been raised and the attempts to find answers, I don't think, and we're back to managing expectations, I don't think we're suddenly going to see a change in attitude and behaviour, whatever the price at the petrol pumps. There are other things that people will value more highly. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Anybody else? No. Councillor Rizal.
Chairman, thank you. And Councillor Baines, thank you again for your wise words. I can't endorse them enough, actually, but it's interesting, I think, to what I would say are our future. The ages of around 17 to 21, those who are going to university and choosing not to buy a car. I think that's to be applauded. I think it's really encouraging that they see no need to do it, that they want to rely on transport to get them to and from university. And I think you're right. I think we're talking about generational change. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The recommendation is that Council, 1, approves the Rutland Enhanced Partnership EP Plan and Enhanced Partnership Scheme. 2, delegates authority to the Strategic Director of Places in consultation with the portfolio holder for planning, highways and transport to approve any subsequent amendments to the EP plan and the EP scheme. All in favour? It's unanimous, isn't it?
Not unanimous, 23, I believe, Chairman.
23. Against? Abstention? Against?
Yeah.
1 against.
Yes.
23 for and 1 against. So that motion's carried. Thank you. Reports from committees of the council. None are there. No. Reports from Scrutiny Commission. We have a report on the agenda supplement from Councillor Fox, as Chair of Growth, Infrastructure and Resources Scrutiny Committee. Do you want to present that, Councillor Fox?
Thank you, Chair. At the last meeting of GIR was on the 10th of February. I do not intend to read out the report as it's been circulated to you, but can I just ask if you have any comments or questions for the report as well?
Thank you. Are there any questions, members? No? Then we are received the report and noted. Thank you very much. Joint arrangements and external organisations. I think we've got a few tonight. So if I start with Councillor Waller, I'll come around the table.
Thank you, Chairman. I have a few. The first is in relation to the Leicestershire and Rutland Joint Health Scrutiny Committee that was held on the 15th of February 2022.
and Councillor Rosemary Powell and I attended on behalf of Rutland. The first paper we received was a report up on the Step Up to Great Mental Health consultation from the end of last year. The focus on mental health going forward is to work more locally and engage with the voluntary and community groups to run activities such as crisis cafes. That is the health authorities, are keen to develop self-referral mechanisms to avoid pressure on GP services. And the committee is going to revisit mental health during the next cycle. The second item was a review of the CQC inspection of the Leicestershire Partnership NHS Trust. This was a limited inspection focusing on, again, on mental health services offered at the Bradgate unit and the management and governance of same. This was a follow-up inspection. The previous in 2018 resulted in inadequate across the board. There's been some improvement, which we were all pleased to see, but the services are only good for the category caring. Members of the committee were particularly concerned about the slow pace of improvement and the governance of the services. And again, this is an area that will be revisited. And finally, the committee received a petition requesting it to scrutinise the draft Integrated Care Board Constitution, and that public consultation on the same be undertaken. It receives, as we do, it receives petitions and doesn't respond to them at that point. The second I want to report on is the Carson Hayes Trust. It links because obviously that's a mental health trust. It met last Thursday. There were a number of applications from various charities, public interest groups and so on across Leicestershire and Rutland. Very few of them operate within Rutland. So if any of you have any connections with any mental health groups within the county of Rutland who might benefit from money from the Carson Hayes Trust, I would urge you to urge them to look on the website, and if they think they're eligible, to put in an application, because I'm sure the trustees would be very happy to give money over to Rutland rather than consistently to Leicester, actually more than Leicestershire, although a number are in Leicestershire. So that was the second one. The third one I want to report on very briefly is the Regional Employers Board and the Regional Joint Council that met on the 16th of March. There was significant discussion on modern apprenticeships and a real desire to promote the grow your own culture within East Midlands Council areas. And I know we have done some of that notably within the context of training up social workers who have become full-time workers, which is excellent. So perhaps we're a bit ahead of the curve, as we often are in Rutland. There was a report back on pay settlements, which I think everybody's caught up with now anyway. And the government is currently consulting on disability reporting, and that's reporting in much the same way as we report now on the gender pay gap. And if it does come into place, it's something that our Employment and Appeals Committee will have to get their heads around. And finally, the East Midlands Joint Scrutiny Network met on the 11th of March. It was an extremely well attended meeting. Its main focus this time just gone was on engaging the public in scrutiny, including engaging the public in developing scrutiny reviews, not just inviting them in when you've decided what you're going to review, but what you might review and how you are going to do it. So it's a very interesting meeting. And the next one on the 24th of June, and they are open to all members apart from the executive members. Everybody else can go, whether you're on scrutiny or not. And the theme will be scrutinising budgets. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Members, anybody else? Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to provide an update and a quick overview to members of this council on the work of the Standing Advisory Council on Religious Education, SACRE, I'll call it for short. I've been chair since October 2020, taking over from Councillor Lucy Stevenson, who's now the vice chair. So there's two councillors on that committee. For people not familiar with SACRE, every council must have a SACRE by law, responsible for advising the local authority on religious education and collective worship in its schools. Whilst the large majority of Rutland schools are now academies, the SACRE still has a role in discussing the provision of religious education, and in fact through RCC officers and our RE advisors maintains good relationships with teachers in academies. We had our last meeting on the 8th of March. We have teacher representatives, members from Church of England, Christian denominations, and a range of faith, including Jewish, Sikh and Humanists. At our last meeting, the main focus was on the developing a new agreed syllabus, which will be introduced from 2023. This is a requirement that it's updated every 5 years. And just for your information, there's a bit of a new emphasis on the teaching of religious education in schools and a shift from teaching about religion to a much more vigorous approach, as has been highlighted by Ofsted, to a subject where concepts and ideas are studied in more depth. And this consideration of what is often being called worldviews now encourages our young people to make more informed judgments on moral, social and religious issues, something that I'm sure all members will support that progress. So do have a look at the annual report, is on the council website, listen into meetings and do ask any questions about the work of this committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor A. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I attended the Local Government Association event on personal safety back in February. A lot of it was common sense, but I did pick out one or two things that members and our residents may find useful. The ICE thing you can put on your phone, I think you're probably all familiar with, in case of emergency, and you can have 3 or 4 of those and put them in order of importance. But one thing I didn't know was that from a mobile phone, it's always better to dial 112 rather than 999 because it goes straight to the strongest signal. Otherwise, it can go to a weak signal and you can get cut off. There's also, if you dial 999 or 112 and then 55, if you can't speak, they will ask you to press certain keys on the phone. That was certainly a bit of information I didn't know. And you can also text 999 or 112, but you have to register first. And what you do is text 999, text to 999 with the message register in the text box. And the other thing I picked up on was the Please May I Speak to Angela campaign, which is if you're in trouble and you walk into a pub and say those words, the bar staff should be familiar with that and should be able to help you. So I don't know if we publicise that enough, because I certainly didn't know about that. And the LGA sent a couple of documents to me, which I thought were quite useful, which I'm happy to circulate to members through the chief exec, if that people think that was useful.
Thank you very much. Any other members? No, thank you. So we're on to notice of motion. We have one notice of motion on the agenda this evening, moved by Councillor Hemphill.
Thank you, Chair. I notice in the papers that Councillor McCartney is down as seconding this. I'd like to ask that this is changed and the agreement with the group leaders and Councillor McCartney, and I've also checked with the monitoring officer, it will be seconded by the group leaders. Is this about Rutland and unity? Rutland County Council is immensely troubled by the impact of Russian aggression in Ukraine and the escalating humanitarian crisis facing the country. In light of this, and as a way of expressing support for members of our community who are from or have ties with Ukraine, this council, 1, condemns the unprovoked Russian invasion of Ukraine and stand in solidarity with the people of Ukraine and their families and friends, including those local to Rutland. 2, stands ready to provide support for those displaced and affected by this war. 3, will work with and support the efforts of our local community to provide help and comfort to those in need. And 4, will fly a Ukrainian flag for 1 month. Thank you, Chair.
Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Oxley, yeah, thank you.
And Councillor Waller.
Sorry, yes, Councillor.
It's seconded by both group leaders, Chair.
Councillor Oxley, second. Councillor Wall, you're second.
It's a joint
Who wants
second.
to speak? Have we got a second?
It's seconded by both
All right, thank you.
councillor Oxley and me jointly.
Yeah, okay.
Who wants to speak?
Councillor Oxley.
Just to say that we support this motion, and I'm very pleased to see it on the agenda this evening.
Thank you. Councillor Baines.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I wonder if the proposer and the joint seconder would be prepared to take an amendment to item 4, which simply says at the moment we'll fly a Ukrainian flag for 1 month. My proposed amendment would fly a Ukrainian flag for at least 1 month and until Russian troops leave Ukraine. I don't know if you felt that, but it seems to me that the stronger we can be, the better. But entirely in the hands of the proposer and seconder.
Thank you for that proposed amendment. There is one consideration which we might need to be, is that the Russians may never leave, and therefore we would be permanently flying a flag. So I'm open to discussion on that, but that is just a caveat I put in there.
Councillor Oxley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Because of very fast moving events, I was actually hoping that we could have some sort of formal flag raising event and invite leaders, community leaders and religious leaders. But as I say, the object of the exercise really is to make a statement in support of the people of Ukraine. And may I suggest that we stick with the proposed motion and see how it pans out, and then we can perhaps come back to this place and extend the motion if needed.
Thank you very much. Councillor Walters.
Thank you, Chairman. I welcome the motion in general. Councillor Baines beat me to it on item 4. I think, bearing in mind we've had to wait to bring this to full council while everyone from Oakham to Essendine have already raised their flags. I really don't want this to have to come back for an extension. I don't quite know whether the leader would consider, we'll fly a Ukrainian flag initially for a period of 1 month to be lowered or raised again at the discretion of the leader in consultation with the chief executive. Something as simple as that, so it doesn't have to come back to full council again, I would have thought would be an answer.
You're happy with that?
I do have one other question though, Chairman. I wonder if the leader shares a concern that I have. I understand that those who are offering to accommodate refugees, and there may be some in Rutland or may not, so I may be worrying unnecessarily, will only undergo light touch assessment. I know we don't have the details. I know the council doesn't have all the details. I'm concerned that although we have extensive coverage on TV of what is going on, it is nonetheless in some ways sanitised. And I defer to former members of the armed forces who know more about that than me. But certainly the trauma that these people will have endured is beyond most of our imaginations. Those who wish to accommodate and succeed in accommodating refugees will likely not, as far as I'm aware, be trained carers such as foster carers, may have limited exposure to those who have endured trauma. They certainly won't have had the training that professional foster carers may have had. So I just wonder if the leader shares my concern that we need to do everything we possibly can to support anyone who accommodates refugees, to give them the guidance, support, and the networks to allow them to take on that role with all care and all the information they have and all the support they'll need from our People Directorate. Foster carers, which is of course my speciality, they often apply saying, well, poor, bless them, poor children, we'll give them a loving, safe home, and that will be all right, won't it? And those who know anything about fostering will know that is not the case. Even though these will not be carers, they will be providing accommodation, they will be providing support, and I do worry about the impact on their own families as well. So I just seek that reassurance, but mainly item 4, or part 4, Chairman.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I do share your concern that people could be taking on a responsibility. It is very clear that this is for a minimum of 6 months and probably more like 3 years. And there is obviously some support that's been given to Rutland County Council to be able to support these people when they arrive here. And at the moment, without clear guidance from the government, I cannot give too much information, but we would clearly want to support them and make sure that adequate support was there across the whole range and they have access to the suitable services when they're in this country. And with regard to your suggestion that we fly the flag for a month and then lower it and raise it again, I believe there's a possibility, but I do know that Councillor Waller wants to come in on this matter, so I'll leave a comment from her. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Waller.
Thank you. I think many of us have sympathy with Councillor Baines's suggestion, but totally take the point that it could be a Ukrainian flag in 200 years' time that's still flying with the wording as it was given. The easy answer is to just add in the at least 1 month, but I wonder whether it might be more sensible for the chairman to suggest a 5-minute break while the proposer and seconders of the motion can get together and just come up, and with the legal officer to come up with some words that we're all comfortable with. That was all I was going to say.
We'll have a 5-minute comfort break.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, may I just say one
Sorry,
thing?
Councillor.
Only to help the deliberations. I'm sure all councillors will support the motion, whatever, but of course there are 1 or 2 complications within the life of the council. We have Armed Forces Week. We have 999, where of course we then agree to fly the flag for a week. So I'm sure the deliberations will come up with this within your 5-minute, but however well intentioned, it is a little difficult to link everything in. So I just say that for your thought in your break, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, as the Armed Forces champion for the county, I can assure members that every single member of the veteran and service community stand by Ukraine. We would be honoured to share the flag of Ukraine alongside the Armed Forces Week, and I am certain there will be another flagpole somewhere where we could run up the Armed Forces flag.
Thank you. Councillor Oxley.
We do have 2 flagpoles at Catmus.
Thank you.
We do.
Right, we'll just have a quick. Quick.
5 minutes.
Yeah, 5 minutes. Break.
want 26 people to make it. Oh, well, you're pleased to be here. Do you know what? I have to hold it sometimes. Oh, that's good. I don't mind doing it. Actually, I thought what you requested, but it was their cycle got out of sync. I do it.
Thank you, Chair. The mover of the motion and the two seconders have agreed to amend item 4 of the motion. So it will now read, the council will fly a Ukrainian flag for a period of at least 1 month, and this will be reviewed by the leader in consultation with the chief executive and group leaders on raising the flag beyond this point. This would give the leader complete discretion to raise the flag after the month with no need to bring it back to council.
Okay. Thank you. Is everybody happy with that? Now we can go to the vote then. All those in favour, please.
That is unanimous, Chairman.
Yes, thank you.
Chair,
Thank you very much, everybody.
if I could just make a comment, the flag will be raised tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oops. Item 15, Members Allowance Scheme 2020, 21, 22, 22, 23. Councillor Hemsley, I think you're on the stage again tonight.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I seem to be getting quite good at standing up and down. Members' allowance approves. The recommendation is approves the member allowance scheme for 2021-22. And Appendix B including a backdated rise in allowances for 21-22 of 1.75% in line with the recently agreed National Joint Council Pay Award for officers. And approves the members' allowance scheme for 22-23, including a backdated rise in allowances once any agreement is made on a pay award for council staff by the National Joint Council. 3, notes the intention to engage the Welland Partnership Remuneration Panel to undertake a review of members' allowances in time to report to council by March 23. So the purpose of this report is to agree the members' allowances scheme and goes into the background. And the council is required under the Local Government Act 2000 and the Local 243 Agenda Item 15 Authorities Members' Allowance England Regulations 2003 to agree a scheme of members' allowances for the forthcoming year by the end of the previous financial year. We didn't bring a report last year for obvious reasons due to pressures. And obviously there is a suggestion that we supported index linking and reflecting this, we linked it with the officers' pay awards. But we may agree not to accept the backdated changes to allowances, and that is open for us to discuss tonight. And if we agree the changes to the structure, it would be right to re-engage with the independent remuneration panel. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Brown, Brown. Members. Councillor Waller.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to propose an amendment to the recommendations that are on the paper, and officers have got copies and are happy to distribute it as it's quite long.
Thank you.
And I will wait a moment while that's done. If you're happy with that, Chairman.
Oh, yeah.
Shall I continue now? Then?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, I'm not sure everyone.
Has everybody got it? Thank you.
My amendment is that we delete 1 and 2 and replace with a new number 1, 2 and a new number 3 that says, notes that the current member allowances scheme allows for annual increases in line with the NJC pay award for officers, but resolves to implement no increases in allowances for either 2021-22 or 2022-23 in recognition of the financial difficulties facing many of our residents at this time. 2, approves the members' allowance scheme for 2021-22 as shown at Appendix A. And 3, approves the members' allowances scheme for 2022-23 as shown at Appendix A. And retains 3 but is renumbered as 4, notes the intention to engage the Welland Partnership Remuneration Panel to undertake a review of members' allowances in time to report to Council by March 2023. Can I go on and explain why, please? Thank you. The reason that I'm putting this forward, and I've taken legal advice on how to word it from our monitoring officer, is that we all know the difficulties our residents are in financially. This is not going to make a huge difference to Rutland County Council's budget, really, but it demonstrates to our residents that we understand and are in sympathy with their plight. And basically, all it's doing is freezing our allowances at their current level for 2 years. The one we will be concluding, financial year will be concluding at the end of this month, and next financial year. The items 2 and 3 are the reference to approving the scheme is that we have to do that annually. So what that means is the scheme that we have currently, how it's worked out, who we give allowances to, and so on, that stays as it is. So there's no change there. I do, however, think it is important that we do call in the Welland Partnership Remuneration Panel during the course of this coming year, because we are looking at our constitution and we may well be making changes. And clearly they will make their recommendations that we then accept or not, as the case may be, excuse me, at the end of this year. I do feel strongly, and I've argued this in this council chamber before, that if we are to attract a wide range of members, we need to have an allowance scheme that makes sense to people to give up their work or to make sacrifices to come onto this council. And my view on that hasn't changed. It is precisely what I said at the beginning of my speech, that people are in very difficult situation at the moment. And all we can do as individuals is to stand by them and not take an allowance increase for these 2 years. Thank you.
Could I have a seconder, Councillor Oxley? Did you want to second it or not? No.
Well, does the leader accept the motion?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Do you want to?
Yeah, I'm happy to accept the amendment.
Thank you.
Is the seconder happy to accept it?
Who's the seconder? Abby?
If the mover accepts your
I didn't have a second.
Yes.
Where am I?
So does the seconder accept the amendment?
Yes, yeah, well done. So we're voting on the amendment.
No, we're voting now on the amended motion.
On the amended
Because all
motion.
of us accepted it.
Yeah. It's the amended motion we're voting on. Yeah.
You've accepted the amendment.
Because you accepted the amendment.
Okay, debate it, yes.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, did
Yeah,
I
we're going
not
to
second
debate it
that
now.
motion?
Sorry.
I thought I seconded it.
I was just trying to get the protocol
What's
right.
going on?
Right, members, we can go into debate now. Who wants to go first? Anybody? Anybody? Councillor Walters, thank you.
Chairman, I'm asking for a point of clarification or whatever you want to call it. Surely Councillor Brown seconded the original motion and he needs to agree to this before we debate it.
Yes. Councillor Brown seconded
Yeah, well,
the
that's,
motion and
yeah,
he's agreed the amendment.
Yeah.
So we can debate it.
yeah. You seconded and agreed.
I seconded the leader's original. Right?
Councillor Walters is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so we can go into debate.
You can.
So
Thank
I
you. We're
haven't
going
said
to-
I've agreed.
We're going.
He hasn't agreed yet. You need to ask him to say he agrees.
Yes. I agree with, yes.
You do, thank you, sorry. I was anticipating, I shouldn't have done. Councillor Walters.
Thank you, Chairman. We have found ourselves in a merry pickle before where we have refused to increase our allowances or declined recommendations year upon year upon year until it became, well, it became a joke, didn't it, the allowances. However, even though I would normally say we should follow the recommendation and take the increase, I think circumstances are so unusual at this time. Accepting an increase would send all the wrong messages to our residents, and I'm happy to support the amended motion.
Thank you. Councillor Oxley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was actually going to propose that we simply freeze our allowances for 2 years and leave it at that, rather than producing a piece of paper with lots of detail. But I'm happy to support this because it says what I was going to propose as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chair. If I could remain seated, that would be great. Thank you. I'm slightly disappointed, I have to say, whilst I appreciate that you're right, the county is really struggling, residents are really struggling. I actually think this does nothing but confirm residents' views that all councillors that sit around this table have lots of money and don't actually need an income. For some of us that sit around this table, this is our income, and actually you are taking money out of my child's mouth, basically. My bills have gone up. My energy bill, like many others around this table, has actually tripled monthly, 1.75%. I appreciate is a lot on council money and everything, but actually the amount we receive is quite a lot. I would say that it's not that long ago, obviously only in 2020, that we agreed as a council to keep it online so that we didn't get into the pickle that we were at last time. Here we are, not long after, and we're agreeing to freeze again. So I think it struggle. It will mean that we will struggle to be more inclusive as a council and for councillors, because people will look at this and just think that people with lots of money could quite happily. So I'm quite disappointed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McCartney.
Thanks, Chair. This is a difficult call. I, like Councillor Wallace, share the belief that if we are to attract a good calibre of councillor and people who are passionate about the county, who want to devote their time to this and give up other things in order that they can put their energies into this county, then we do need to be able to remunerate people accordingly. And as such a small county, we are well below the remuneration level of a lot of other authorities. But at the same time, I do feel here that a matter of weeks after voting to increase council tax by the maximum permissible, to then award ourselves a 1.75% pay increase effectively does send out the most terribly wrong message to the residents of Rutland. And it's not something I think that would strengthen the reputation of this council. So I very much support this amended motion as it is.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor G. Brown.
Yeah, I fully support the comments made by my fellow councillor, Councillor Harvey, but I'm not going to labour on that point this evening. I think it's absolutely right what she said. I am concerned, however, about item 3 or item 4, depending on which motion we're looking at, with amendment item 4. about using the Welland Partnership Remuneration Panel. I have to say I was incredibly disappointed by their approach last time round. I expressed my views to the leader. I didn't think they really listened to the issues of our county and of our people, our councils in particular. They weren't interested in the workload that members have, and particularly cabinet members have. They just wanted to increase by the rate of inflation over the period between when we hadn't had an increase previous to the increase that we had at last time round. So I think I would ask that we don't approve that, but that we do approve a review, absolutely, if we're going to do that, but we take out the Welland Partner Remuneration Panel. I just think that is the wrong way to go totally. I think it will not end up with the right result for members and attracting particularly younger members and those younger members who work. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Anybody else? Councillor Rozelle.
Mr. Chairman, I support Councillor Harvey's view. And the reason I do that is because I'm in a really nice position of not having to rely on an income that I get from the council to meet the invoices, bills, etc. come my way, simply because I've got a nice military pension. And I would suggest a good number of those sat around the table tonight have a nice pension when they start in the morning, when they go to work, or when they get up. If you are a young person and you're looking to start a career in local politics, what message are we sending? Is that you need to have a pension before you start, and that actually you're the wrong age to consider that type of engagement with your community. Personally, I don't need it, I don't want it, but I think it sends a wrong message to those we're trying to attract, and we're trying to lower a demographic and a representation of a growing community in Rutland.
Councillor Hemsley. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Nick.
Thank you, Chair. I have sympathy for both sides of the argument, and I suggest the mood music around the table will mean the amendment is voted through. What I would like to suggest or understand, if it's possible, that instead of this money going back into general coffers, whether or not it can be ring fenced to help people in need as some sort of hardship fund.
Is that a question?
Yeah, we can.
We can.
We'll take it away and we'll take it, yes.
Yeah.
We can look at that.
We have a hardship fund, we can expand it.
Apparently we can look at that, Nick.
Well, only if members agree that it's worth looking at. That's my
Councillor Ainsley.
Thank you, Chair. I have to say I wholeheartedly agree with what Councillor Harvey has said. And I can't understand why we need a motion for everybody to decline their annual increase when actually you have that power yourself individually to act as individuals and to do what you will with the allowances increase. So I fully support what Councillor Harvey has said and will be voting against this amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Baines.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'll say tonight what I've said to every review of members' expenses that I've listened to, that it should be pitched at a level that is neither an incentive nor a barrier. And that is the rule I would go by. Again, Councillor Ainsley has just said the second point that I was going to make, it is perfectly clear in the original papers and the original motion that if any member wishes to not accept part or all, or indeed any remuneration, it is entirely up to them to do so. I've known some people, some members in the past who have done so very publicly. I've equally known a lot of members who have done so privately. I had no difficulty in supporting the original motion, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Stevenson and Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Chair. I make this comment every time we have members' expenses come up at full council. Childcare is the only expense that is capped per annum at £1,000. That can be a real impediment for single parents who do not have a partner at home that can look after their children. I'm not suggesting any amendments. I'm not asking for it to be changed. I am merely wryly pointing out that the one thing that is capped is childcare. So in terms of attracting people, if you were a single parent and you didn't have your family there to support you, I am very fortunate I do, and I do not believe I've ever reached anywhere near that cap, but it could be seen as discriminatory and an inhibitor. I'm not proposing an amendment, just to reassure you, Chair, but I make the point every time this comes up. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. And if you allow it, could I be seated, please? I want to thank Councillor Stevenson for bringing up that point. I've already spoken with the Chair about remaining seated tonight. Because I have disabled children, so I cannot just get any babysitter. I have to hire a carer, and this costs significantly more. However, I do support the proposed amendment because I do not think it's right or fair at a time when energy prices are at an all-time high and fuel prices are at a high, and we've just seen the council tax go up to the maximum amount that we then receive a raise. It is not how the public will see it, but I do understand where Councillor Harvey is coming from, because I am in that position myself. We have already turned our heating off, and I want people to know that I stand with them and for them and not against them, and that is why I support the amendment.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Powell, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is a difficult one, and I think we all have a great deal of problem like equating and balancing, but I agree with Councillor Baines, it should be, you know, a fair amount, neither an incentive nor a disincentive. And I think we shouldn't get so, we've all got our own particular circumstances. We can agree to not take the allowance if we want to, but if we're going to the trouble of having a 5-year review, and I wonder if something can be taken on board about Councillor Brown's comments about the Welland Partnership, we go to the trouble to have a 5-year review. I remember one of my first meetings at the council, the previous council just kept putting off that decision on members' allowance, and we had this huge catch up as a new council to immediately vote ourselves a quite a large back increase that hadn't been done properly. We go to the trouble to have a 5-year review. The recommendation is reset it and then have an inflationary increase. Then I think we should stick with that and accept that. We all recognise people's financial difficulty. It is a gesture, and I'm torn, to be honest, but I really think that, emotion aside, if that's the rate and the recommendation, that actually we should strongly consider that as our status. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to come back?
Thank you, Chair. I do think that I understand completely the plight of our residents, and many people have already talked to me about the pressures they're facing, and I'm seeing it on tenants, I'm seeing it on people on the high street and everywhere, that how they're going to make ends meet. And I do understand the dilemma that this chamber faces. I am, however, concerned that our remuneration, as has already been stated, is not probably comparable to many other authorities. And I just wonder whether actually, instead of just saying, no, we don't take it, to support people who actually do need this money to support them in their role, that we as a group, and picking up on Councillor Beggy's suggestion, the money was ring fenced, that should we wish to, we actually take the allowance and we take that additional money we're given and we put it into a pot that then is used for our communities, that we can all agree on how it should be spent. So we're supporting our communities, but we're also making sure that our remuneration reflects that. But it's not, there's no stigma attached to whether you do or don't put the money in. Thank you.
Councillor Waller.
I'd like to come back on that. We can all put our money into a pot for our communities, because all our communities, one place or another, have got various charitable foundations that we could contribute to if we chose. My purpose and our purpose in proposing this amendment was to be seen by the people of Rutland to be doing something. And it's the look out there. If they're not going to know that we put it into a charitable pot or not, it's actually, it's 1.75% this year of less than £5,000 for the majority of people in this room, because we're talking about basic allowance here for most people. I know that cabinet members get more, and those of us who are scrutiny chairs get additional allowances on top, and clearly it'd be 1.75% of those as well. But we're not talking about huge sums of money here. We are talking about what for me is a principle. And I said before, I have argued long and hard that our allowances should reflect the job that we do. And if you want to get people to give up a day a week's worth, which for a backbencher, if you're going to do the job properly, is what it is, then they're not going to do that for 5,000 a year anyway. So we are already relying on people's goodwill, giving up their own time outside their normal working day. And that's fine. We've all signed up to that. That's why we're in this chamber in the first place. But I think this is something we could do that says we're standing together with our people. And that's why I urge you to vote for the motion as amended, please.
Thank you. Councillor Walters.
Could I make a point of order, Chairman, having already spoken? In line with the budget and in line with council tax, I would call for a recorded vote. I realise I need support to call for that.
Yes. Are there 5 members who agree?
Are there 5 members who agree?
4. 1, 2. Yes, yes.
5, yeah.
Be a recorded vote.
Yeah. We're going to this amendment.
So what's happened is we've amended the motion so that it's now this. This is what we're voting
And we're
on.
keeping the Welling Partnership.
Yes.
I don't
No, so it's in. So the amended motion is as it stands on the piece of paper that you were given a little earlier. Okay.
Yes, Chairman. So the motion is as set out in front of you, councillors. Councillor Ainsley.
Against.
Councillor Baines. Councillor Beggy. Councillor Blanksby. Councillor Ball. Councillor A. Brown.
For.
Councillor G. Brown.
Against.
Councillor P. Brown. Councillor Burrows. Councillor Cross. Councillor Dale.
4.
Councillor Fox.
Against.
Councillor Harvey.
Against.
Councillor Hemsley.
Abstain.
Councillor McCartney.
For.
Councillor Oxley.
Abstain.
Councillor Powell.
Against.
Councillor Rozelle.
Abstain.
Councillor Stevenson.
For.
Councillor Waller.
4.
Councillor Walters.
For.
Councillor Webb.
Against.
And Councillor Wilson. I do apologise, Councillor Toseland.
For.
Chairman, with 14 votes in favour, 7 against and 3 abstentions, the motion as amended is carried.
Thank you. Thank you, members. Item 16, pay policy 2022-23. Councillor Hemsley.
Thank you very much, Chair. This is the annual publication of our pay policy as required by the Localism Act. In addition, members are also advised via this paper the latest position regarding national pay negotiations. In summary, there are no recommendations or proposals to change the Council's existing pay policy, and therefore existing provisions remain in place. However, there are some key and important issues to reflect on. As reported last year, our staff have continued to support and deliver key services, both in terms of supporting COVID response work and the continuation of our services to the community. Much of this has been front-facing and delivered within the community. Ways of working have changed, with many of our staff working to a hybrid model where they deliver their role from the home and from within the office. As with other authorities, we're experiencing increasing pressure on recruitment across a growing range of roles. Moving on to pay. A significant issue for authorities has been the late agreement of the April 21 pay award, having only recently been settled. This has followed a very protracted period of negotiation between national employers and the 3 unions, and also included measures taken by 2 of the unions to consider strike action. Fortunately, their balloting of members was not successful. Nevertheless, we are now pleased to see that the agreement has been reached and staff will receive an uplift together with backdated payments. Turning to the 22-23 pay discussions, national employers have advised that the unions are expected to submit their pay claim in May 2022, already beyond when the pay award should be effective. We again anticipate this to be protracted. The paper outlines some of the ongoing issues regarding such negotiations, not least the pressure from ongoing increases to the national living wage. Thank you, Chair. I'd like to propose this.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Stevenson. Members? Nobody? The recommendations are that Council approves the 2022-23 annual pay policy, and 2, notes the update position regarding the local government pay award. All those in favour?
Unanimous, Chairman.
Thank you. There's no urgent business. I'll close the meeting. Thank you ever so much for your attendance at 8:30.
Quicker,